Question 1. Well, 6,324 is 6,000 to the nearest thousand. So the nearest thousand, it's got to be a whole thousand, so either 6,000 or 7,000, but it's closer to 6,000. Question 2. So write the following numbers in order of size. Well, the biggest negative is -6, then -5, then 0, then 6, and then 12. So smallest to biggest, left to right. Now, to write the following numbers in order of size, just to help, I think it's quite nice just to add some zeros to the ones that have got 2 decimal places. Just makes it easier to compare and contrast, really. So we're looking at the 3 digits after the decimal point. So that's effectively 78, 780, 870, and 708. So bearing that in mind, 0.078 is the smallest, then 0.708, then 0.78, and then 0.87. Question 3. Write 20% as a fraction. Well, that's 20% means 20 out of 100, and that's fine as your final answer because it didn't ask you to simplify. If you have simplified, then you could have given 2/10 or 1/5, but 20 over 100 will give you the mark. Question 4. So which of these fractions is not equivalent to a quarter? Well, 4 over 16 is. If you divided top and bottom by 4, you get a quarter. 2 over 8 is. If you halve top and bottom, you get a quarter. 15 over 60 is. You divide top and bottom by 15, you get a quarter. But 3/9 isn't. You divide top and bottom by 3, you get a third. So which one of these is not equivalent to a quarter? Well, it's 3/9. Question 5. Write down the first even multiple of 7. So multiples of 7 is just a 7 times table. 1 7 is 7. Well, that's odd. 2 7s are 14. Well, that is even. So the first even multiple of 7 is 14. Question 6. Well, 3 lots of 4t is just 3 times 4 times t. 3 4s are 12, so that's 12t. Now for part B, 8a take away 3a plus 6a. So 8a take away 3a is 5a, then 5a add 2a is 7a. Question 7. Write down the letter of the event that is certain. Well, if it's certain, the probability of it happening is 1, so that's event D. Part B. Write down the letter of the event that is unlikely. Well, B is unlikely. It's not impossible. A is impossible, but B is unlikely as it's close to 0. Now, part C. There are 12 counters in a bag. 3 are red, 1's blue, 2 are yellow, rest are green. Show that the probability of this counter is yellow or green is 2/3. Okay, so how many green have we got? Well, we've got 3 red, 1 blue, 2 yellow. That's 6 in total. We're told we've got 12 counters altogether, so that means there must be 6 green. So how many yellows and green together? Well, we've got 2 yellows and 6 green, so that's 8 counters that are yellow or green. So the probability of a yellow or green is 8 out of 12. If you divide top and bottom by 4, this gives you the 2/3. Question 8. So 3 kilograms of meat costs £54. So how much would 1 kilogram cost? Well, if 3 kilograms costs 54, you need to divide by 3 to work out how much 1 kilogram costs, which is £18. So if 1 kilogram costs £18, to find out how much 2 kilograms cost, we double this. 2 lots of 18 is £36. Question 9. Write down the mathematical name of the straight line showed in the circle. Well, the straight line from the centre to the outside of the circle is called the radius, and the name of the line that just skims a circle, just touches a circle, is called a tangent. Question 10. So Tim and 3 friends go on holiday together for a week. The 4 friends will share the costs of the holiday equally. Here are the costs. So 1,280 for 4 return plane tickets, 640 for the villa, 220 for the hire of the car. So all of these costs need to be shared equally. So add all of these costs up first of all, which gives us 2140. And to share these equally across 4 people, you need to divide that by 4, giving us £535. Question 11. So for part A, write the factors of an even number are always even. So we need to show an example to show this is not correct. Okay, well, for example, the odd number 3 is a factor of the even number 12. 12's even, 3 is one of its factors, but 3's odd. So that's an example. Now part B, all the digits in odd numbers are odd. Well, 23 is an example of this not being the case. 23 is odd, but clearly the digit 2 is even. So 23 is an odd number, but 2 is even, is an example. But of course there are many other examples you could have used. Endless. Question 12. So for part A, write down the number of desktop computers sold in 2015. Well, here's 2015, and desktop computers are in black. So just reading that off, we can see we've got a height of 100. Now part B, work out the total number of laptops sold in the 3 years. Well, the laptops are the dotted shading, so it's the middle part. So we've got to add up each of these 3 areas. So in 2015, the area goes from 260 down to 100. So that's 160 sold in 2015. Now in 2016, this shaded area goes from 340 down to 120. That's a total of 220. So 220 for 2016. And in 2017, that area goes from 440 down to 160, which is 280. So add these 3 numbers together and we get 660. Now part C, state the item that has had the greatest increase in sales over the 3 years. Well, we can see that the tablets has started off really small, then got about 3 times as big, then has more than doubled. So tablets, as the bar gets proportionally longer over time. Proportionally, it's getting a lot bigger than compared to the time before. Now part D, Alex says in 2017 more tablets were sold than desktop computers. This means that the shop makes more profit from the sale of tablets than from the sale of desktop computers. Well, that's not, we just don't know, because profit is a different thing to sales. Profit is when you take away all your costs from the sales. So is Alex correct? You must justify your answer. Well, we just don't know. So no, as we do not have any information about how profitable each sale is. So Alex can't just say that the shop makes more profit from the sale of tablets than from the sale of desktop computers, because we just don't know. Question 13. So Peter cuts 2 45cm lengths off the wire. So we're going to cut 2 lots of 45 off this 240. So 240, take away 45, take away 45 leaves us with 150 centimetres. Now how many 40cm lengths can we get? Well, 150 divided by 40 is 3 3/4. So we can cut off 3 lengths of wire, or 40cm wire, quite a bit left over, but we can only get 3 full 40cm lengths. Question 14. So Gavin saves 28%, so that's our starting point. Now Harry spends 3/4 of his salary and saves the rest. So Harry saves 1/4, and 1/4 is 25%. Now the amount of salary Isabel saves compares to the amount of salary she spends is 3 to 7. So she saves 3 bits out of 10. 3 add 7 equals 10. Okay, Isabel saves 3, spends 7, so in total earns 10. So Isabel saves 3/10, which is 30%. So comparing the amount of savings, Gavin saves 28, Harry saves 25, Isabel saves 30, so Isabel saves the most because she saves 30% of her monthly salary. Question 15. Now, to work out a percentage on a non-calculator paper, it's a good idea to start off with 10%, which is a tenth. So to work out 10%, you divide by 10. 160 divided by 10 is 16. So if 10% is 16, well, 5% is half of 10%, so that must be half of the 16, which is 8. Now 10% add 5% is 15%, so 15% is going to be the 16 added to the 8, which is 24. Question 16. So part A. So we're working out P, which equals 4 lots of X plus 3 lots of Y. Well, 4 lots of X is 4 lots of 5, which is 20, plus 3 lots of Y. Well, Y is minus 2. 3 times minus 2 is minus 6. So 20 minus 6 is 14. Now part B, to expand, we've got to get rid of the brackets. We've got to do the double claw and do 4e times e and 4e times 2. Now 4e times e is 4 times e times e, which is 4e squared. Now 4 times e times 2, or in other words 4 times 2 times e, is 8e. Now part C, so we've got to solve this. So we start off by expanding the bracket, a bit similar to what we've done in B. So 3 times m is 3m, 3 times minus 4 is minus 12. Now we want to get the 3m on its own, so we choose to add 12 to both sides. So 3m equals 33. Divide both sides by 3, we get m equaling 11. Question 17. So a quarter contain nuts, so 3 quarters do not contain nuts. So the ratio is a quarter to 3 quarters. Now if we multiply both of these sides by 4, we get a ratio of 1 to 3. That's the 3 up there, sorry. 1 to 3. Question 18. So I suggest you start by listing the members of A and the members of B. So the members of A are multiples of 5 between 14 and 26. So that's 15, 20 and 25. Now the members of B are all the odd numbers between 14 and 26. So that's 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, 25. Now part A, list the members of A union B. Now union means they're either in A or in B or in both. So that's basically all these numbers, but not double counting them. So 15, 17, 19, 20, 21, 23 and 25. Now part B, describe the members of A intersection B. Well, those A intersection B means you're in both A and in B. So that's the 15 and the 25. They're the only 2 numbers that are in both lists. Now we've got to describe what these are. Well, these are the odd multiples of 5 between 14 and 26. So we're just combining these 2 definitions. Question 19. Now we always start off with turning a mixed number into a top-heavy number. So 2 1/7 is 15 over 7. And 1 1/4 is 5 over 4. Now when we're either adding or subtracting fractions, we need to have a common denominator. We need to have the same number on the bottom. Now 7 and 4 both go into 28, so let's make this common denominator 28. Now just starting with this first fraction, how many times have I multiplied this 7 to make it into 28? Well, I've multiplied it by 4. So I've got to multiply the numerator by 4 as well to keep it unchanged. So 15 times 4 is 60. So 60 over 28 is an equivalent fraction to 15 over 7. Now similarly with the second fraction, 4 times what gives me 28? That's 4 times 7. So to get the equivalent fraction I need to times the 5 by 7 as well. 5 7s are 35. So 35 over 28 is an equivalent fraction to 5 over 4. Now that I've got the common denominator, I can add the fractions together. So add the numerators, add the top numbers. 60 add 35 is 95. Now be careful, do not add the denominators. Okay, it's still 28 on the bottom. Now turning that back into a mixed number, that gives me 3 and 11/28. Now part B, again as always, start off by converting from a mixed number to a top-heavy fraction. So 1 1/5 is 6/5. Now when I'm dividing, what you do, you keep the first fraction the same, change it from being a division to a multiplication, but flip the second fraction over. So it's no longer 3/4, it's 4/3. Now that you've changed it into a timesing, this is the easy one. It's just top times top and bottom times bottom. 6 4s are 24, 5 3s are 15. Now I've turned that into a mixed number, that's 1 and 9/15, and then I've simplified it to 1 and 3/5. Question 20. So the ratio of houses to flats is 7:4, houses to flats is 7:4, and flats to bungalows is 8:5. 8:5. Now, to be able to create a ratio across all three, I need to have the common number in the middle. So what am I going to do to this 7/4? In order to bring it in line with the 8 flats here, I'm going to choose to double both of these. So 7/4, the equivalent ratio is 14:8. Now that I've got the 8 in the middle for both ratios, I've got 14:8 and 8:5. So in other words, I've got 14:8:5. So that's my ratio working across all three. Now I'm told that I've got 50 bungalows, so 50 in the bungalows column. So I can see that the actual number of properties is 10 times my ratio. So 10 times as many bungalows, 10 times as many houses. So the number of houses in the village is 14 times 10, which is 140. Question 21. Well, let's start off by converting the 5 kilograms of sweets into grams. There are 1,000 grams in a kilogram, so the 5 kilogram bag of sweets that's been bought is 5,000 grams. Now, Renee's going to put this into 250 gram bags. So how many bags is Renee going to be able to produce? Well, 5,000 divided by 250 means she can produce 20 bags of sweets. Now, each bag she's selling for 65p. 20 bags times 65p is 1,300 pennies, which is £13. So she bought the sweets for £10, she can sell them for £13. So the actual profit she's going to make is £3. Now we want to work out her percentage profit. Now to work out the percentage profit, you divide the profit by the original cost and multiply by 100 to turn it into a percentage. So 3, the profit, divided by 10, the initial cost, times 100, means her percentage profit is 30%. Question 22. So we've got to estimate how many days Juan will take to complete the race. So it's an estimate. So first things first, the length of the race across America is roughly 3,000 miles, and he's roughly going to be doing 15 miles per hour. So how many miles per day is he going to do roughly? Well, he's going at 15 miles per hour for 8 hours a day. That's 120 miles per day. Now he's got to go 3,000 miles, 120 miles per day. So doing 3,000 divided by 120, and I've done the calculation down here, we can see that's an estimate of 25 days. Now, we're now told that Juan's average speed he can actually cycle at increases, is now 16.27 miles per hour. So, given he's cycling faster, it's perfectly sensible to say you would estimate a fewer number of days. So that answer's absolutely fine. If you just said because he's going faster, it would take a fewer number of days, you would get the mark. However, what you could have said was, well, if it was 16.27 miles per hour, I would still round that to being 15 miles per hour when I was doing my estimate. Now, if you've rounded this to 15 miles per hour, that's exactly what we did up here anyway. So if you were actually following that through, your estimate would still come out at 25 days. So an alternative answer is to say your estimate would be unchanged as 16.27 miles per hour, still rounded down to 15 miles per hour. So it's completely up to you. You can either have said that you'd estimate a fewer number of days, or you could have said your estimate would be unchanged. Question number 23. Part A, draw an accurate front elevation of the pyramid. So if you were standing at the front, what would you see? Well, you would see a base of 6, and you would see a height of 4, sort of a vertical height straight up of 4. Now for part B, to work out the total surface area of the pyramid, so we've got to work out the area of the 4 triangles plus the area of the square base. Now each of these triangles, how do you work an area of a triangle? It's half times base times perpendicular heights. So the actual perpendicular height of these triangles is 5, so the area of each triangle is going to be half times 6 times 5, which is 15. You've got 4 such triangles, so 4 lots of 15 is 60, plus the square base, which is 6 times 6, so the square base is an area of 36, so a total surface area of 96, and don't forget the units centimetres squared. Question 24. Well, I think if you label up your diagram here, this question isn't too bad. So let's think about point A. Now, point A has got an x coordinate which is 6 along, and point B has got an x coordinate which is 38 along. So the length from where this square starts to where this square finishes is 38 minus 6, which is 32. Now this length comprises the base of 4 squares, of 4 of the squares, so each square must have a length of 8. So all of these lengths are 8 for the sides of the squares. Now bearing that in mind, now we can now work out the coordinates of C. So with regard to its x coordinate, the amount along the corridor, well, we've gone 6 along, then another 8 for the width of the first square, then another 8 for the width of the second square, then we've got to the x coordinate of C. So the x coordinate of C is 6 plus 8 plus 8, which is 22. Now with regard to the y coordinate of C, I'm going to work backwards from B. So B's got a height of 36, then to get down to C, I'm going to come down 8 and then come down a further 8 to get to C. So the y coordinate of C is 36 minus 8 again, which is 20. Question 25. So this is going to be a straight line graph, so we just need a couple of points to plot to draw a straight line, but maybe 3 points just for luck. So choose some sensible x values, for example 0, 1 and 2, and in turn substitute each of these into the function to get a y value. This will generate you some coordinates that you can plot. So when x equals 0, substituting x being 0 into this, we get y equaling 1 minus 4 lots of 0, which is 1 minus 0, which is 1. So when x is 0, y is 1. So that's the first point that we can plot, 0, 1. Now when x is 1, let's just go and substitute 1 into the function. So y equals 1 take away 4 lots of 1, which is 1 take away 4, which is minus 3. So our second coordinate is 1 minus 3. And then a third for luck really, when x is 2, y equals 1 minus 4 lots of 2, which is 1 minus 8, which is minus 7. So when x equals 2, y is minus 7. So there's 3 points. So I can now just get out my ruler and draw a line carefully through these 3 points. But make sure your line stretches all the way, at least from minus 3 to plus 3. So all the way from minus 3 to plus 3. No harm in just doing the whole of the graph paper, but you mustn't just restrict it to your 3 points. You must go all the way from minus 3 to plus 3 as required by the question. Question 26, so quite an easy one to finish. So we've got to work out 2 lots of A plus B. So 2 lots of A is just 2 lots of the vector 5, 2. So double the 5, double the 2, giving us 10, 4. So we take our 2 lots of A, which is 10, 4, and then we're going to add that on to 1 lot of B, so just minus 1, 7, and we just add these 2 vectors together. So 10 take away 1 is 9, and 4 add 7 is 11. So our final answer is the vector 9, 11.